Hello, friends. This is Chad, and welcome back to Game Lab, where we open all the cool new hobby stuff, unwrap it, unbox it, unfold it, unflip it, unfurl it, and I lend you my 15 years of experience in the game trade, tell you what I think about it so you can make a more informed decision. Today, we are going to be looking at issue number 266 of Game Trade Magazine, published by Alliance, which is owned by Diamond. If you are a comic book customer or a comic book store owner, then you almost certainly know what Diamond is. And if you are a game store owner or have ever worked at a game store, chances are you know who Alliance is. They are one of, I don't know if they're the biggest game distributor in North America, but they are certainly right up there. There's lots of great game distributors, but Alliance is somebody that almost every store owner is going to have an account with, especially if you sell HeroClix, because that's one of the handful of things that are exclusive from Alliance is HeroClix. I've been receiving a copy of Game Trade Magazine every month since March of 2007 when I opened my first store. So now we're up to 266. I think my first issue was 85, but this is the April issue, which will contain all the May-June pre-orders. So we're going to flip through this and take a look at the cool new stuff coming out. Maybe there'll be a couple of things in here that'll be an episode of Game Lab in the future. So on the cover, you got War of the Ring, which is in second edition. There's like a million Lord of the Rings games out there. I've heard a lot of good things about them, but I've never played any of them. I played the living card game once, and that was pretty cool, but that was about the extent of it. So let's open this baby up and see what we got. Okay, right inside we got a big full-page ad for Yosemite from WizKids, which, I mean, it's a board game, $30. Fast-paced competitive strategy game for two players based on the landmarks of Yosemite National Park. All right, that's kind of cool. Then on the other page, we got a Horrified game called Horrified. All right. That's from Ravensburger, which if you are a puzzle fanatic, then you almost certainly know who Ravensburger is. And they also do some games and stuff, so that looks kind of interesting. I'm kind of a Bigfoot fan. Do you believe in Bigfoot, or do you think he's all a myth? Why don't you post that down in the comments, and we'll have a lively discussion about the existence of Bigfoot. So then, okay, we got kind of a general table of contents thing going on over here with cover stories, some features. Another full-page ad for First Rat. Rats in the old junkyard told the great legend about the moon made of cheese. One day, a comic about the first moon landing is discovered, and a plan is hatched, build a rocket, and yada, yada, yada. Ages 10 and up, 30 to 75 minutes. That's a pretty broad range, but 1 to 5 players. All right, very cool. Ooh, Painting Happy Little Minis. That's a cool article and also an interesting channel on YouTube if you want to check that out. They have a lot of cool little tutorials. I like Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy myself, just because I got used to him painting all the GW minis back in the day, and now he's got his own gig, so I like to check that out. He's pretty interesting. More table of contents. It's just a list of games. It tells you what page they're on if you want to read up from them. A full-page ad from Paizo, kind of running through the cool new stuff coming out for Pathfinder and Starfinder. I don't see where they are listing the new 5e adventure that they have coming out. Pathfinders, I don't know if they're going to be doing a lot of them, but I saw on Professor Dungeon Master's page, he talked about the 5e adventure they're going to be doing. It's an old Pathfinder adventure, and now they're converting it over to 5th edition so people can play Pathfinder adventures in 5th edition. So that's kind of sweet. Letter from the editor, COVID distancing from John Kovalik. That's kind of cool. Battletech, new Battletech coming out. Okay, Dork Tower comic book, so that's kind of cool. And Unstable Unicorns is always good for a laugh. Longshot dice game. A user's guide. Okay. Every month, the Game Trade Magazine bullpen works tirelessly to bring the latest in game industry products and news to these pages. And I'll say they do a pretty good job. There's not a whole lot you can get out of these games. I mean, a lot of these are board games, so them just telling you the mechanic and showing you pictures of the board setup is all good and well, but if you're a gamer, you probably would do better with a video. Do better with a video, whatever that is. But you'd do better with an unboxing video or something, which is one of the things we try to do here in the lab. I don't know, you're going to get a lot about a board game. I mean, other than just showing you the cool new releases and kind of running you through some basic details, how long does the game take to play, how many players, blah, 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 expansions and so forth and so on. And you have that with War of the Ring, where you can see they've got Lords of Middle-earth and the Battle of the Five Armies, Hunt for the Ring, and Warriors of Middle-earth, and all that good stuff. So that's kind of good in that regard, but it doesn't tell you much about the game. Another ad for Yosemite, so looks like WizKids is going to be pushing that pretty hard, which is nice. That's a $30 little, what is it, a board game, card game? I guess it's a board game. It's got some kind of a board in there. I really liked carrying those in my stores. I think those are the better way to go. It's a pretty competitive market for board games, and I think, at least as far as I'm concerned, I can't speak for every store owner, but at least for myself, I was always a little gun shy about companies pumping and dumping board games out into the market. I love evergreen products. I like things that I know are going to be consistent sellers, that I can carry them, I'm going to sell them, and I can restock them. Because every time you order a new game, it's an unknown. Is this a game somebody's going to buy? Are they not going to buy? And at some point, it just becomes white noise. I've always been a big proponent that every game is somebody's favorite game, which is kind of why I don't do reviews here on Game Lab. I just kind of give you my ideas and thoughts and opinions. I've got a lot of years of experience. But really, at the end of the day, a game that I don't like at all might be your favorite game, and your favorite game might be utterly disinteresting to me. So, I like reviews. They're cool, and I really like Rodney Smith over at Watch It Played. He kind of gives you the run-through of how a game works. Will it definitely tell you if that's something you would like? But I don't know that reviews are very helpful because they're so subjective. So we got Soulforge Fusion, which, as I understand, it was a digital game by Richard Garfield, and now they've turned it into, it looks like, is it a deck building game? Soulforge Fusion began more than a decade ago when some people met at PAX, Richard Garfield being one of them. Started Soulforge with 3 unique leveling system, cards level up as you play, create gameplay. Origins, turning a purely digital game into a digitally printed game. Shared turns, definitive endgame, and Forgeborn. Okay, so that's kind of cool. A hybrid deck game. All right, well, that's interesting nonetheless. Got some pretty cool art. Keyforge was pretty hot, but now I don't know if it's so hot anymore. I mean, some of that stuff tends to hang around, but some of these things also end up being novelties. And like I said, every game is somebody's favorite game, so there's always those handfuls of communities that keep it alive, which is a beautiful thing about Discord and Facebook and all that stuff. You can have your little groups and talk about games and keep them going, and that is really nice. The My Little Pony Adventures in Equestria. Ooh, that's kind of a cool deck building game. Space Station Phoenix from Rio Grande Games. You can always count on Rio Grande Game to put out some pretty good stuff. Shadowrun. So we got some 6th World Core Rulebook, Seattle Edition. Well, that's kind of cool. We got a little extras here. 30 Nights, Neo, Anarchist, Streetpedia. I never played Shadowrun. Looked interesting. It was never terribly it was never sure blah, 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 blah. It was never terribly popular at any of the stores that I owned, but I know it has a good following. I can never remember a time that it wasn't a game. Here we got Bardsong. It's a $200 dungeon delving board game. If you're familiar with Descent 2nd Edition, Journeys in the Dark, then I think you have a pretty good idea of what Bardsong is all about. There's a lot of different mechanics and all that stuff. It's very cool. I can tell you this is definitely going to be an episode of Game Lab, so I won't spend a lot of time on this. But it was kickstarted, a year ago by Steamforge Games, and those guys make some really nice models and very cool stuff. Well, that's going to be its own episode of Game Lab. Blood and Steel, Victorian Age Combat. Never did a lot with the historical miniature gaming. Carried Flames of War for a while. I think carried it 2 different times. And Flames of War is really cool. I thought it had one of the best game mechanics for as far as a miniatures game that I've ever played, but it never sold super duper well. We had a couple of tournaments for it, and it was cool, and everybody had a lot of fun. It was cool seeing the battles being reenacted. But again, it's a historical game, and those tend to have, a niche within a niche. So, ooh, speed paint. Actually, I'm gonna be taking a look at speed paints here on Game Lab in the future. So, but that's just a listing of all the different colors. Very cool. And the war paints. Oh, that's right. They got air paints coming out. They're going to have to get another. They have a 3rd rack for Army Painter. There used to be 2 racks that had all your paints and primers, and the other rack had all your tools and little hobby details and stuff, your static grass and all that jazz. And that was super cool. I really liked that. Now they have a 3rd rack because with speed paint, air paint, and I think they have effects paints coming out. Oh, and they got their terrain stuff. Little terrain kits, terrain building kits. That's going to be cool as hell. Big bottles of air paint, so that's nice. Digimon is still a thing. I never played that. Never had any good luck. I never had a lot of luck selling Japanese card games. Pokemon always did pretty well, even though that, I don't know, can you argue that that's really a Japanese card game? It's definitely kind of like an anime thing as far as the cartoon goes, but Wizards of the Coast used to do the card game, and now Pokemon's their own thing. But, and we had a little bit of luck with Yu-Gi-Oh! Could never get tournaments off the ground for whatever reason in our area. And then anything else, what is it? The Dragon Ball, TCG, and Digimon, and like Chaosium. Chaosium's the name of a game company. There was a bunch of little Card Fight Vanguard. that was one. Actually, that one did really well at first, and then it just kind of fell apart. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but that's how the communities go. Ooh, the DC deck builder game. I've probably played 1,000 games of DC deck builders, the original one, and that one is super good. I look forward to that. The only problem I ever had with Cryptozoic was it seems like they had all these really cool expansions for the deck builder, the DC deck builder game, and then you could, they branched down into other universes with the Hobbit and stuff, and it was super cool, but you could never keep them all in stock. That was a little disappointing. Oh, a handful of little board games and stuff. For what it's worth, I'll tell you, as far as board games and card games went, I loved all the like little $10 and $15, $20 little card games. Any board game that seemed cool and family oriented up to $50 I was down with. But once you start getting like, that's one of the reasons we're going to do Bardsong is those big $100, $150, $200 games, Gloomhaven, Descent, Bardsong's one of them, Twilight Imperium, all those things. They are really cool games. But if you don't know a lot about them, it's really hard to drop 100 bones on a board game you don't know anything about, and you don't know if you're going to get friends around to play it. I mean, at least if you're playing D&D, you spend, $50 on a book, and if you can't get your friends around to play, well, then at least you can read the book, and that's kind of cool. But a $100 board game, that's tough, and it's pretty steep competition online for that stuff too. So I was always leery. I tried to really do my homework on those $100 and up board games, because that's a big investment that's really going to sit on the shelf for a while. I love Descent for the idea, Descent 2nd Edition, Journeys in the Dark, because I felt like it was like role-playing light. Like it was kind of, it's a dungeon crawl game. It's not kind of, it is a dungeon crawl game, tile-based. And I really liked that aspect of it. It had campaigns and different characters. And then they started adding like other lieutenants and monsters and heroes and expansions. The problem was in 15 years, I can't ever remember a time where I could just order everything for Descent. I couldn't get it. I really wanted to. I thought that would be an awesome place for a player to start if they were a little leery about role playing, since role playing can be a little abstract if you, in my opinion, if you don't really role play already and you don't get it, and you don't have a group of players that actively role play to kind of, bring you along for the journey, so to speak. I thought Descent was a good way to start, but you could never get anything. Not anything. You couldn't get everything. And that was disappointing. I wanted to make a big wall, like a display wall of Descent with everything, and could never do it. But enough of that. So we got some other stuff here. You start getting into indie board games and the Japanese Japanime game. I don't know why I couldn't say that. A couple of spotlights. Is that Tactical Masters? Yep, Yu-Gi-Oh! Tactical Masters. So that's kind of cool. What do we got? Mantic Entertainment. Oh man, they make some great miniatures too, and they've got Armada, which I used to play Armada. That game was fun. I really liked that. That was a lot of fun. And they do Kings of War, which is really cool. And then they've got what else have they got? Firefight coming up. They have a lot of cool stuff. I think that's them. But yeah, they do a lot of really cool things. And they got a lot of really nice models. I'm looking forward to doing some of their stuff on Game Lab in the future. Oh, the terrain crates. Those are nice. Those are really nice. There's nothing. WizKids comes out with some terrain too, and those are pretty cool with their unpainted miniature line. Nulzer's Marvelous Miniatures and Pathfinder Battles. But the terrain crates are super cool. I never carried any models from Modiphius, but they look nice. I mean, everything does, I guess, once you get it all painted up and assembled perfectly. Monster Fight Club mats. Never carried any of those, but those look kind of cool. I do like these Wilderness Books of Battle mats. I didn't carry those. I don't like them specifically, but I like the Pathfinder flip mats. I always like those, and the cards, the flip cards or whatever that you could get. Those are really cool. You almost couldn't carry enough of them. Those sold really well. Osprey Games. Those guys have been in the biz for a long time. Some cool new Paizo stuff coming out. The Art of, a new series of books about wonderful miniatures art. Oh, man, you can spend hours and hours and hours looking at people that can paint way better than you in a book, and it's super cool for techniques and ideas and all that stuff, but I don't know, just try not to get discouraged. It's easy to do so. I know I was at Gen Con one year, and I walked by the Reaper booth, Reaper Miniatures, and I was looking at the miniatures they paint, and man, that stuff just blew me away. I thought, I'm a pretty good miniatures painter, and then I saw the stuff at the Privateer Press booth and the Reaper Miniatures booth, and I was just like, nope, I don't know what I'm doing. These guys are some level so far beyond me. But if you keep painting at it, you'll get at it. I have gotten better over the years, but a lot of it has to do with how much time you really want to dedicate to it, and some of those models are like 20, 30 layers of paint, and I'm painting stuff for play, not for display. So that does make a difference. Oh, some cool new Monster Apocalypse models. I think it's really cool that Privateer Press released those as unpainted models, and some of them you have to assemble and whatnot. I carried Monster Apocalypse way back when it was a collectible miniatures game and everything was pre-painted. Those are really cool. Now they've got a bunch of different games with like Warcaster, and they still got War Machine and Hordes. They got Warcaster and another, I can't remember the other miniatures game, but they've got one. I think they still got level 7. I don't know if they still print that, but I think level 7, I always intended to play that game and I never got around to it for whatever reason. Power Rangers seems to be making a comeback. I've been seeing a lot of stuff from Renegade, but it looks like they bought the rights to G.I. Joe and Power Rangers because they've been cranking out books and deck building games and all kinds of stuff. So that's good to see. I like to see that. Vampire. Oh, Renegade has Vampire now. That's kind of cool. I carried Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Forsaken, Exalted. What was the other one? Vampire, Werewolf, Forsaken, or Werewolf the Forsaken was one book. Exalted. Then there was like the Changeling. There was a couple of them, but it was all White Wolf back then, and they had a lot of stuff. And then they also had the Vampire, the card game, Vampire the Eternal Struggle. I hosted a couple of tournaments for Vampire, and those are some really cool guys. The Vampire players are just really cool guys to hang out with and talk to, and you never really saw them outside of the tournament. But when we had a tournament, 15, 20 of those guys would show up. They would play. They were all super pleasant. You could just sort of chat it up with them, and then the tournament was over and they headed on home. But those guys were really fun. I like that. I was disappointed when that ended, but just kind of fell apart at the end for some reason. Unstable games. I like all the unstable games. I think I've carried, not anything they've released in the last year, but I've carried all the Unstable Unicorn stuff and Happy Little Dinosaurs, and those are a lot of fun. They're just cheap, easy little games that people can play and have a blast with, and they're low dollar amount. Their low price point makes them kind of a no-brainer to get into. Any game I figure under $20, you don't even have to think about it. You can just be like, oh yeah, I'll buy it and give it a try. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit fun no matter what you do. We got Ultra Pros, got their binders. I always loved Ultra Pro stuff. They made good stuff. Double Masters coming out 2022. What is that? Playmats, binders, sleeves. That's kind of neat. Dexter Clue, Coco game. There's a bunch of jazz like that. Ooh, Final Girl. I actually saw I watched Rodney Smith do a playthrough or a Let's Play on Watch It Played for Final Girl. That actually looks really interesting. I would carry that at $20 a piece. Again, that's one of those games. Any board game under $50 that looks interesting, especially something like that, that's kind of got like a unique mechanic to it. It's just a no-brainer. Just get it. Put it on the shelf. People will buy it. Ooh, Monsters in the Multiverse. That's cool. That's coming out. Right now, it's available in the 3-book set with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything and Mordecai's Tome of something Foes. Forgive me, I don't remember all the D&D books names. It's not like they're all Dungeon Master's Guide, Player's Guide, Monster's Manual. Now they all got like Horkheimer's Tome of Increpulestrum or something. But so like super weird names. Oh, Critical Role from WizKids? Man, WizKids is giving Reaper miniatures a run for their money. Man, WizKids minis are great. I liked Reaper. I was never a big fan of Bones. The Kickstarter for Reaper was so successful that I don't know. I'd be interested if you're a game store owner when Reaper Bones came out. I would like to know what you think about Reaper Bones, because when Bones came out, it just felt like it killed all the Reaper mini sales because they were just shoveling truckloads of bones to people at some of those Kickstarter levels. It was just like, if you support us up to $100, then you'll get a Ford F-150 truck bed load of bones. Like, jeez Louise, man. You never be able to paint all those models, for crying out loud. Now, here's where Diamond kind of infiltrates the Game Trade magazine, because now we're getting into graphic novels and stuff, which is nothing I ever really carried. I did have one. The last store I owned was a comic book / game store, and we had built out the graphic novels to a certain point, but comics were getting weird after DC was no longer distributing through Diamond, and then, right before the pandemic, it got super weird, so that was a big mess. I've heard good things about Villainous. I've never played it, but I always thought it was really cool. There's First Rat again. That's another full-page ad. Oh, 2-page ad. Okay. So it kind of gives you a walkthrough and up close of all the components and stuff. I can see that being a lot of fun. WizKids. Is it WizKids? Oh, no. Jeez, why was I thinking that was WizKids? Pegasus Spiel. Still very nice. Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. I, at one point, carried every book for Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, and I never sold a single copy. Ever. I don't know why. People seem to love it. The people that play it absolutely seem to love it, but no, none of them lived anywhere near any of my stores, I guess. So Oh, mountains out of molehills. Well, that seems kind of original. I mean, you can't get too much out of these. Oh, that seems kind of cool. Anime 5e, I would definitely carry that. The last store I had, we carried everything for 5e. We carried every single book. If Wizards of the Coast printed a 5e book, we carried at least 3 copies of it. It was a core book, carried 10 copies of it. If Goodman Games released something for 5e, we carried it. If Kobold Press released something for 5e, we carried it. Then we had Humblewood. That was super cool. That thing, people snatched that thing up, but yeah, okay. Painting Happy Little Minis. Okay, there's a nice little painting guide. The video is definitely worth watching, but they paint some really nice miniatures. It's a good way to pick up tips and techniques. Quests of Yore from Onward. So actually made a role-playing game based on the role-playing game that was in the movie. So that was kind of cool. I always wanted to play that, but I never played it. This is the Barley's edition. So painting Happy Little Minis. A little tutorial every Thursday at 7 p.m. Starfinder Galactic Magic. So that's a new book coming out. That's kind of cool. Another ad for Bardsong, which will be an episode of Game Lab. Twilight 2000. Oh, okay. It's a coup which began in the Soviet Union, led to the Cold War, turning hot as devastation was unleashed upon the world. The U.S. military was scattered to the winds in Europe as any hope of support dissipated. Now in the year 2000, a transmission has been received from the U.S. military about a plan to restore order in the chaos. Operation Reset. Okay, that's kind of cool. If you're into real-world military games, that was never really my bag, but man, I knew a lot of people that really loved them, and they were hardcore fans. I'll tell you that. Transformers: A Rising Darkness. That actually looks kind of cool. A standalone game and expansion that can be combined with messing all that up. Can be combined with the Transformers deck building game core set. Very nice. That's Renegade, isn't it? Yep, Renegade Studios. I would have thought so. Longshot the dice game. That's kind of interesting. My wife might like that. She's a big horse fan. Dungeon Party. I think I'm going to have to pick up Dungeon Party. That actually looks really interesting. I'll have to make a note to catch that. Batman Dark Knight Returns. I don't know much about these Batman games. It seems like there's been a bunch of them, and I don't know anything about them. Mostly because anytime I ever ordered them in, they sold out before I could ever get to look at them. So Epic Encounters from Steam. We're going to be doing some videos on Epic Encounters. Those are awesome. I carried every single one of them. I think there were 3 of them out at the time, but those are really cool. If you play 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and you like miniatures and you like, pre-made adventures you can just jump into or that you can, modify yourself, then Epic Encounters is definitely something to look for. Those things are great, and the miniatures are awesome. Another ad for Bardsong, Resident Evil 3. Okay, this is like a gallery of Steamforge game stuff, isn't it? Dark Souls, a role-playing game. Dark Souls, the board game. A more Epic Encounters. And then a bunch of stuff for Villainous. Which villain are you? Ooh, there's Yzma. Oh, lots of cool ones. Lotso, Scar, Maleficent, and the Evil Queen. And that wraps up Game Trade Magazine number 266. Hey, I really appreciate you guys watching this. If you stuck around to the end, especially, I didn't think this was going to be 26 minutes long, so I hope it wasn't super boring. But nevertheless, it was fun for me. I hope it was a little bit fun for you. In the meantime, if you liked the video, share it with your friends, subscribe, click that bell for them notifications so you get a notification. I guess that goes without saying. The next time one of my Game Lab videos gets dropped. And until then, I'll see you next time here on Game Lab. Thanks, guys.